I'm going to start with a little kind of preamble. I want my kids to play outside with other neighborhood kids every day. I want them to create their own games and rules. I want them to play big, complex games with large groups of kids and smaller games one-on-one with a best friend. I want them to decide for themselves what to play, where, and with whom. I want them to settle their own disputes with their friends. I want them to create their own private clubs with secret rules. I want them to make lasting physical artifacts that show the world that this is their place. I want them to laugh and run and think every day. That's what I had. It's my standard for a good childhood. It's my goal for my kids. That's me on the lower left in suburban Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, back in late 60s, early 70s. And we had girls in my neighborhood too, and we played with them as well. The main reason I chose this photo is because of the place, because that we're sitting in my backyard. Behind us, right there, I'll pull this out, is that street. If I can pull this back there, that was our hangout. That's where we played baseball and football, two-hand tap football, and we roller skated. That was a place we could go to every day and find somebody. And then the house behind, right there, across the street, had 4 boys and a girl. We had lots of kids in the neighborhood. We were, typical for that time, outside every day. So I have some questions to ask you, very simple questions. Do kids in your neighborhood play outside every day or practically every day? I'd like to see a show of hands. So we have a couple. That's wonderful. For those of you who didn't raise your hand, do you think it's possible, or are you skeptical? Because I certainly am skeptical, have been skeptical about it. Do you think it's possible? Okay, good. We got one back there. Well, my goal for today is to show you that it's possible and show you how to make it happen. And so this is a very much of a hands-on, action-oriented, this is what's going on in the world talk. So I've got 3 parts of my talk. I'll talk about the problem, I'll give you some inspiration, show you that it's possible, and then I'll provide some solutions for you. So the problem, very simply, kids are doing too much of this and kids are doing too much of this. They're either inside, in front of screens, consuming digital media. The surveys I've heard are out of sight. 8 hours a day, on average, children 8 to 18, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. So they also sleep and they also go to school. They don't have any time for anything else. It does skew socioeconomically, so the poorer kids tend to be in front of screens more, and the richer kids less. The richer kids tend to do this. They tend to be in, and you don't see the adults here, but I guarantee you there's adults around pretty much controlling the whole event and controlling what kids are doing. So there's nothing in between these two. There's no zone between these two for kids to have control over their own lives, to have some autonomy, to be doing things on their own, learning on their own in their neighborhood, which is really this magical place where you're kind of close to your parents, but you're not inside, just kind of sedentary and under their thumb. So what? I mean, a lot of parents say, hey, this is 2011. Who cares? I mean, this is the way it is. Well, there are measurable problems. Kids are way more obese, way more obese than they used to be. There's an awful lot more depression. It's been measured. There's more suicide. Kind of goes up and down, but there's definitely more suicide, especially in Palo Alto. I live in Menlo Park. And creativity, in certain ways, has been measured to be less than it was. Non-measurable things, life skills. So there's a whole movement to try to add, and I'll talk about this later, a new life stage in the psychological profession called emerging adulthood. The reason for that is because people in their 20s these days are, in general, less able to live on their own, support themselves financially, have a long-term relationship, all sorts of other things. They don't have as many social skills in person, again, not measurable. So there's a lot of problems. The main point I want to bring out in framing the problem is this is a social problem. So most parents, when they think about this, a lot of parents are not happy about this. They say, okay, well, I'm just going to cut the TV. I'm going to cut the video games. Or I'm going to cut, the organized activities. The problem with that problem frame is that if you do it as an individual family, and you free up your kids' time, and your kids go outside, they look around, there's no one there. There's no one there. So there's not much fun outside in the neighborhood if you're the only family providing the solution, if you're framing the problem that way. Also, it doesn't feel very safe. I mean, Honestly, it is quite safe in historical terms right now, but it doesn't feel very safe if there's no one out there. It feels a lot more safe if there are other people there. So this is a social problem. The problem frame that I like for this is that neighborhoods are boring. If you think about what neighborhoods are like today, they're not a lot different than they were years ago, except there's not a lot going on. There's nothing there. But if you compare more to the point, what are neighborhoods like today versus what are all the other alternatives that kids have to spend their time? They've got these amazing video games. They've got the internet and Facebook. They've got great activities. They have way more activities than we did. If you compare those, it's pretty easy. Boy, they're way up here, neighborhoods, there's nothing going on. So my approach is, yes, we do want to limit some of those things that individual families can limit, like TV and video games and structured activities. But the main thing is, let's make the neighborhood more interesting. Let's make the neighborhood a competitor with Facebook, with video games. And I'll show you a lot of neighborhoods that have done that. So now I want to provide some inspiration. I'm going to show you some neighborhoods throughout the United States. I'm going to spend a lot of time on mine because that's what I know about the best. And I've really thought about some really good solutions, but I'll show some others as well. This is my, what I call neighborhood family room in Menlo Park. We have a lot of other great things going on for our kids in our neighborhood. Our backyard's amazing. Our creek is amazing. We go there quite a bit. We're out on the streets quite a bit. But for today, I'm just going to talk about our neighborhood family room. And this is what it looks like. But there's actually some new things here, new things back here. It just keeps evolving over time. This is the table. You notice the table here. Okay, so here it is. And there's my wife right there. We have lots of family functions. Most people around here, they have family functions in their backyard. There's privacy fences. It's boring to me. I mean, it's like a penitentiary. We have family functions in the front yard. And it's like being, we're not in a big city, but it's kind of like being on a boulevard in a great grand city like San Francisco or Paris. People walk by. We have a lot of walkers in our neighborhood. They come by while we're eating. They stop by. They grab a drink of wine. Kids come over. So these kids, that kid here, he wasn't at the party. He was just walking by, and he came over. He started playing hockey. Okay? And we have hockey going on in our driveway. So we have wonderful parties in our front yard because of our picnic table. This is a new feature. This is a map of our neighborhood that we drew out as a mural on our driveway, and we play games on there. I'll tell you about some games we play, but it was also giving kids sort of an understanding of their neighborhood. This is one game we played a few weeks ago. It's called, I made it up, it's called Huntopoly. It's a combination of scavenger hunt and Monopoly. And kids can build Legos. The scale of the map is such that you can actually put Legos or Hot Wheels or Matchboxes. They all fit there. And then it was a scavenger hunt. And by the way, this is a Monopoly piece. So kids were rolling fuzzy dice. You can see there. They were moving the Monopoly piece, and they were grabbing things from different homes in the neighborhood. They were taking pictures and meeting people as well. This is a fountain we have right next to our sidewalk. Lots of kids, dogs come, especially little kids. They splash their hands in it. It's a great way to draw people in. This is our whiteboard we have along the right side of our fence line. Rather than having a boring fence, we put whiteboard up there, and we got a bunch of pens. People go wild. Kids go wild. This is a sandbox we have. And you can see the sidewalk right there. Families come, and we tell them, come anytime. It doesn't matter if we're there or not. Just come and play in the sandbox. And we have planted in there lots of foreign coins. You can buy coins by the kilo. All these defunct currencies from Europe, currencies that have been devalued, we put in there. This is our river. We have a kids' river in our front yard. And we could turn it on or off. The water flows. We have boat races. This is a mosaic that we made in one of my neighborhood summer camps in our front yard. It's based on a book called The Big Orange Splot. I don't know if you have little kids, but it's one of my favorite children's books. And the quotation here says, "Our street is us, and we are it. Our street is where we like to be, and it looks like all our dreams." And that's what we really believe. We've got another mosaic as well. This is my son, Nico. The point of this is to tell you that our neighborhood family room extends beyond the borders of our front yard. It's the street, too. And my boys, Marco, well, I have three, Marco, Nico, and my little one, Leo, at 2, even him, they're out on the street a lot. There's very, 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 very light traffic. You see no cars 95% of the time, there are no cars there. I'd say we get a car every 5 or 10 minutes. And Nico, amazingly to me, we've always considered him to be our least coordinated boy, really. He's really bad at like hitting the ball with a tennis racket. Day after day, being in the street, having a garage full of wheeled vehicles, he taught himself how to ride a bicycle without training wheels, 3 years old. It's just amazing what kids can do if you give them some freedom, if you give them an environment where they can actually go and do some things on their own. We've forgotten that in our society. This I want to show, so I was talking about the neighborhood family room quite a bit. This is the family room, okay? I know you probably look at a lot of the features from our front yard and think, oh my gosh, so much money, I can't do that. Well, the point is not how much money you spend, it's your relative attention, the relative amount of time and money you spend. Our family room in our house, as a matter of fact, our entire house has no new furniture since my wife and I got married 9 years ago. Nothing. You know, we've got a decent house. We've got a pretty nice house. It costs a lot of money, but we put no money inside. As a matter of fact, this couch, which we bought about 10 years ago, one of the legs started getting wobbly. So what would most people do? Most people in Menlo Park who have multi-million-dollar homes, what would they do? They buy a beautiful new couch. What did I do? I took the legs off. That's our priorities. So now I want to go and talk about a couple other neighborhoods in the United States. One is this Play Street in the Bronx, the South Bronx. This remarkable woman, Hetty Fox. Now we've gone from one of the richest parts of the United States. This is one of the most poor, one of the most decayed, one of the most crime-ridden. Hetty Fox has been working there for 40 years. She was born and raised there to bring back her neighborhood. And one of the many things she does is she works with the city of New York to block the street off so that there's no cars here from end to end. It's a one-way street. Every Monday through Friday during the summer from 8 to 5. The feeling there is absolutely incredible. It is absolutely the most warm place you can imagine. No lie. Inside one of the most crime-ridden places in the United States. And this is a boy I want to tell you about really quickly. His name is Jacob. Jacob goes out every day. He had just turned 2 when I met him. Goes out every day. His mother's not there. There is no specific person assigned to watch Jacob. He's got some cousins because Hetty has worked to bring relatives. There's a lot of extended families who live right on the street. He's got a cousin here. He's got an aunt there. He's got a friend there. Jacob comes out of his house every day on his scooter with nobody watching him. And he plays on the Play Street every day. His mother comes back when she comes back from work. It takes a village to raise Jacob. It really does. And he's a remarkable boy. He's really doing very well. This is another place I love, an intersection repaired in Portland, Oregon, from an organization called City Repair. They painted a mandala in the intersection, and they've created different installations at every corner. There is a solar-powered tea station, for instance. There's a tea station that you can get tea anytime you can go there. There's a couch, there's a bulletin board, there's an exchange station where you could take things you don't want anymore, take something out that you want. This I want to just zoom in on. This is a kid's playhouse. It's there every day. The toys are out every day. This is the city of Portland. This is not a suburb. The toys stay out. People don't steal them. And kids come from all around. It's another place, a retrofit housing community called N Street in Davis. What happened was, retrofit, the idea of retrofit is, this used to be a normal neighborhood, and they tore down all the fences between the houses over a period of years, over a period of 20 years. So what you have now is this very, very tight community, but the people own their own homes. But when they buy a home in this neighborhood, they buy into a concept of sort of communal living. They have their own homes, but there's a common house. There's a common house right there. People go every day and have dinner, not every day, 3 times a week, let's say. They have dinner together. They have a TV room. So instead of watching TV in your own home every night, you can go to the common room and watch, the Giants play in the World Series. Isn't that a lot more fun? I'm going to tell you one story. This girl's Lucy. Lucy is the only Asian person in the entire community. Actually, her mother, who was white, she adopted her from China. Her mother, for one reason or other, decided to adopt her as a single woman. And then a year later, she died. So she died of cancer. She had a recurrence of a cancer she had. So in most cases, what would happen with Lucy? Lucy would, obviously she was adopted. She's only been there for a year. She would go to some foster home. She would go somewhere else. In this case, the community more or less adopted Lucy. One of the families, one of the homes adopted Lucy in law. But Lucy goes to different homes almost every day. She's being taken to Chinese lessons by one dad. She's being taken to dance lessons by somebody else. She's in and out of different people's houses. She's really a child of the community. It's a really amazing story. This is a Playborhood for a special needs boy in Burlington, Vermont. My point here is this is a wonderful, wonderful neighborhood. Kids are outside all the time. In this case, one of the citizens, one of the kids in this neighborhood, is a boy who has cerebral palsy. He can't use anything below his neck. He can use his hand a little bit. He can press buttons on his wheelchair. But kids come over his house and ask him to come out and play. He's the umpire for their wiffle ball games because he has strike and ball and out buttons on his chair. He's actually the umpire. Kids come over and say, "Hey, can you come out and play, Ben?" It's an amazing story. Here's another place. It's an apartment complex, a courtyard in Mountain View. It's a courtyard. They don't have air conditioning. They have thin walls. Moms and kids come out every day. Every day. I came over there one day. These kids were playing with this cardboard box. It's kind of a cliche, cardboard box. The kids can do amazing things with a cardboard box. I've never seen kids do more with a cardboard box than I saw these kids do. I was there for an hour and a half. I couldn't believe it. These kids are tremendously happy. And the mom that I spoke to is very, very happy too. She was hanging out with the other mothers. She said to me, we're all thinking we're going to move out someday because everybody wants a house. And I thought, I don't know if I'd leave. It's a great place. So now I want to talk about solutions. And so I'm going to talk about two solutions that are about the physical environment of a neighborhood or of the place where you live. And then I'm going to give you four sort of steps that parents can do to make a difference in their kids' lives. One is move to a potential Playborhood. And what I mean by a potential Playborhood is there are very, very few places like the place I showed you where it's happening, where things are going on. But you can go to a place where there are kids, where there's calm roads, things like that. I really am very critical of the real estate industry. The real estate industry, they really try to sell the idea that they're giving families great homes for their children. What are they really doing? What are they selling? Well, they're selling dual-pane windows. They're selling hardwood floors. They're selling freshly painted interior and exterior. They're selling vaulted tongue and groove ceilings. What about children's quality of life? These things have nothing to do with children's quality of life. And I'll tell you, show me a kid who talks about how much he or she likes the inside of his house, and I'll show you a kid who has a crappy neighborhood. Because if you've got a decent neighborhood, you're not sitting inside the house, especially here in California. You're out there having fun. So my basic recommendation is, this is from The Godfather. Remember The Godfather when Michael Corleone went back to Sicily? I'm half Sicilian, so this is meaningful for me. And he met this woman, and somehow he asked, "Hey, can I go on a date with her?" This is his date. Okay, there they are, and there's the family. So in Sicily, as in China, my wife is from China, in traditional Italian, traditional Chinese culture, maybe a lot of other cultures, when you marry the person, you also marry the family. And I'm saying, marry the neighborhood. So my wife and I did this. My wife and I, we spent 2.5 years looking for a home. We finally found a home that we liked. We bought a home, and I created this whole sort of formula for how to go buy a home if you want to buy a home where kids can have a great time, where kids can have a great life. The neighborhood that we bought has the most kids, our kids' age, of any neighborhood by far, within a 2-house radius. It's got a very calm street. It's got very walkable destinations. It's got a great neighborhood school, not just because it has great test scores, but because the principal has a policy of low or no homework. The principal respects our family. I love it. And the school's a great school as well. And they have recess at our school. There's a lot of great things about it. But this is not our favorite. It's not our favorite house, the house I showed you before. It's not our favorite house. It's probably like number 7 out of our top 10. There were 6 houses, let's say, that we like more. But we chose this house because it's the best neighborhood. But one other thing about this neighborhood, there were no kids playing outside. Very few when we moved in. And we've changed that. So the next recommendation I want to share with you is make a neighborhood hangout. There's a book called The Great Good Place by Ray Oldenburg. Oldenburg talks about this idea of a third place in humans' existence. The first place in our lives for our social sustenance, for our social beings, is our home, our family. That's the first place where we have social relationships, where we have some social sustenance. The second is our workplace or our school. But there's always been a third place, and there still is a third place. And traditionally, it was the neighborhood pub. You know, it's still the case in some villages in Ireland and England. It could be Cheers, the bar. It could be a cafe. Today, it's Facebook, or it's chat rooms. So this third place that people have come to rely on over human history, a place where I can go, drop in, chat with people I know, leave. I don't have any appointments that I have to be there at any certain time, but I go there, I hang out. It's become a virtual hangout. And I'm saying to you, we need to create real-world hangouts for our children in our neighborhoods because they don't exist anymore. You know, the fundamental calculation that a kid is running through a kid's mind, this is Lyman Place again in the South Bronx, is the kid's calculating, okay, what if I'm considering going outside, what are the chances that there's something going on? In most neighborhoods, it's zero. I would venture to say in 95% plus neighborhoods, a kid sits down and he thinks, okay, what are the chances there's something going on in my neighborhood? Zero, I'm not going outside. Even if it's 20%, it's got to be close to 70, 80% before a kid will decide, I'm going to go outside. Because if I turn on that computer, if I turn on that video game, I've got instant gratification. So making a hangout is fundamental. And so there's some principles that I've laid out that I can talk about with you later about how to create a hangout for our kids, but fundamentally, it's not the park 5 or 10 blocks down the road. It has to be right on your block. And it's better if it's right in your yard. Because kids don't roam. Kids used to roam many blocks to go to see things. Now they stay within a block. Most kids in the United States, this is true, are not allowed to leave their front yard until they're in their teen years, if you can believe it. So kids need to have some cool hangout that's in their yard or within a couple blocks away. I say, if you got the yard, if you got the ability, do it right in your front yard. The third recommendation, keep preschoolers' lives simple. Human beings have evolved for eons without electronic games, without youth soccer, without all these organized activities, without automobiles. That's how kids develop best, is interacting with the real world, interacting socially, touching things, feeling things, running around, being active. Leave It to Beaver. A lot of people make fun of Leave It to Beaver. I'll tell you, if you sit down and watch it, it's unbelievable the amount of independence, autonomy that this kid has. He just goes out. He's 7 years old in the first episodes, the first year. He just goes out and goes to school. He walks to school. He walks to his friend's house. He goes and hangs out with the guy, Gus, the fireman at the fire station. Today, we would think Gus is a pedophile because he's hanging out with a little kid. But really, Beaver's a great role model. So our kids don't have any television. So once in a while, they watch a video on an iPad. I control what they watch. They watch Leave It to Beaver. They watch some educational videos. They watch things that we want them to watch. The rest of the time, they're out playing. Don't drive when you can walk or bike. It's amazing. If you really try to spend a Saturday walking and riding a bike, how many interesting things there are close to your house. I know, I live in the Bay Area. You guys live in San Mateo or other places. There's amazing things right around where you live. And that's much better for kids because when you walk with your kids, or even when you ride your bike, if they start riding their bike, you're peers. You're both doing the same thing at the same time. But if you're driving, they go in the back seat, they make no decisions, you tie them up in a car seat, and they're looking at the back of your headrest. I mean, it's really a demeaning, powerless experience to be riding in a car when you're not driving and you can't even see outside the road. You can't make any decisions. Walking and biking is much better for kids. And have family dinners every night. I don't have to tell this crowd. It's the number one thing that families can do to help their kids in school, to help them have some moral values, to help them sort of get some sense of what's important in their lives. Fourth recommendation, I think fourth or fifth, make a village. So What I want to say here is that a lot of people have co-opted the term village to mean some ephemeral idea of the virtual village. Marshall McLuhan talked about the global village. I'm talking about the real physical village. Because from kids' point of view, especially when they're not literate, when they're not able to read, they can't go online. They can't, have this global village where they're communicating with people all over the world. Their village is whatever they can actually touch and feel and experience in the real world. And if they're under your control all the time, if they're under parents' control all the time, then it's not really something that they can learn very much from. So I'm talking about the village right around their homes. This is Marco's village. And I wrote an article when I drew this map. Marco's my 7-year-old, about a year ago when he was 6. This is where Marco can go on his own. And believe me, this is all checked out. We're okay. It's safe. And these are the homes. This is my family where we live. And these are the homes. I made up all the names. Of people he knows. The ones in gray are families where there are kids that he knows, that he's comfortable with. And then the white ones are people who don't have kids, but he knows them. And actually, I could add to this now. That's Marco's village. And that's his world. If you're thinking about your kids' lives, if people, you don't have kids, if you're thinking about kids' lives, and you're thinking about places beyond where that kid can go on his or her own, independently, that's not his village or her village. That's parents' village, okay, imposed upon the kids. This is Marco's world where he goes on his own, where he makes decisions in his life. Okay, I got a time signal. All neighborhoods have hidden treasures. I mentioned the Huntopoly game, okay? Kids went out, they knocked on doors. This woman, she's a widow. Her kids are all grown up. We never would have met her except for this game, Huntopoly. So that's my son Nico, that's my son Marco, and that's a friend. Wonderful experience. Encourage self-reliance is my 5th of 6 recommendations. I know I'm over time. Parents don't care about self-reliance for some reason anymore. Kids are growing up without life skills. That's a real problem. That's a fundamental problem. The point is, there's this term, I don't know if you heard, emerging adults. Emerging adults is a new term I mentioned before for people in their 20s who aren't able to handle adult life very well. They live with their parents. They're not financially independent. They don't understand how to have real long-term relationships with people of the opposite sex. Emerging adults started as kids without self-reliance. So it's a problem that starts in childhood. And that's Wayne's World. So parents, I believe, should remain involved, but step aside. Parents are very involved with their kids' lives more than ever. I say step aside, be there, but don't be hovering on top, controlling all the time. This is my son Marco riding to school. He's 7 now. He's in 1st grade. And I've been riding further and further behind him to school. It's a 1.5 miles. I'm about 100 yards behind him now. I'm about to cut the cord and let him go on his own. Seems remarkable, but when I was a kid, we walked on our own to school when we were 6 and 7. We did it. They can do it. The neighborhood's safe. There are hundreds of kids on bikes going to school every day. There's no pedophile issue here. This is perfectly fine, and he's able to do it. Okay, my last, I know I'm way over time. Let them roam with mobile phones. So kids are older, they're tweens, they're teens. Roaming used to be, well, this is a picture of depicting a family of 4 generations of boys who were 8 years old. How far could they roam? And this is in Sheffield, England. This son today is only allowed to go 300 yards. Generation by generation, and by the way, he's very lucky. Most kids 8 years old can't go beyond the limits of their yard. So it's 30 feet. But this great-grandfather could walk 6 miles to go fishing. So I think roaming's important. And how do we empower tweens and teens to roam? Well, the main way today is through the cell phone. And a lot of people have a lot of problems with cell phones, I understand. But what you don't realize is that the cell phone is the #1 ticket to independence for children today. It's the thing that society has come to accept as the ticket for kids to go on their own to friends' houses, to go on their own to school, so on and so forth. So I say, give kids cell phones. And by the way, parent-child intimacy. Studies have shown that parents and children are more intimate because of cell phones. So give tweens a mobile or smartphone, actually, because smartphones have mapping capability, which is really important for getting around. So obviously, cell phones they're not great. There are problems. I say prohibit use in the home, prohibit use on roadways. They shouldn't be there. In the home especially, at the dinner table, please. I don't want it. And this is my concluding slide. That's me. The real world can become their game board. There are a rich new set of games, a whole new wave of video games coming on that are cell phone based. They use a GPS, but the interesting thing is when you're playing a game and you're working with a map on your phone, you're trying to find things in the alleyway. You're trying to find things at a home. You're trying to find people. The real world becomes your game board. You become more immersed in the world with video games based on GPS than you are when you don't have a cell phone. It's the opposite effect. Usually we have this zombie effect with cell phones where I'm staring at this and I have no idea what's going on around me. But cell phones actually hold great promise for children. It's a great technology, I think, for the future, for getting kids outside, for getting them involved in the world. So that's all I have to say. Please email me or check out my website, playborhood.com, and mike@playborhood.com. Thank you.